What's up, everybody? I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2021 Honda Odyssey Elite. So the Odyssey got a little refresh here for 2021. It's still mostly the same as before, so if you're familiar with the Odyssey of the past few years, there isn't anything radically different here. On the outside, it's a different front end and back end. That's about it. Otherwise, on the inside here, the one thing you will see is that you have this white piping around these mocha brown leather seats, which are so dark, they actually look black unless you pay attention to them and look at, compare the door trim to the, actual leather here on the other part. It's very, very subtle.
Yeah, it's very subtle and very interesting because at one part it looks brown, at another part it looks gray. I couldn't tell unless I literally put my phone flashlight up, almost right up against it, and then I could see that it was brown. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, I really wish they would have done a little bit more color. I don't think anyone would have been offended if you made it a little more brown and a little less, gray. It's just, yeah, I love, brown interiors. I just wish they would have amped up the color a little bit more.
Yeah, I just think that it could have made it look a lot better because right now it's kind of there's something off with these black seats because you think that they're black unless, once again, you put your flashlight right up against it and you can tell that it's not actually black.
And it makes this interior look a little less visually interesting than, the Sienna and the Pacifica. Because Sienna, we had the XSE and that has half the seat is white and the other half's black and it had orange stitching and it was all very exciting. The Pacifica's got pillows in the back and it's got a very plush and a bright caramel orange, almost brown interior, and really pops. And this is definitely the most subtle of the bunch, but for some people that's what they like. You can also get a lighter gray interior, and depending on the trims, I think those are just the normal black interior and stuff as well. But anyway, yeah, other things with these seats though, I think they're nice and soft and comfortable. I like the little fold down armrest. It's something that you usually get in minivans, but I really like having that. You have the normal adjustments, lumbar, all that kind of stuff.
And I will say, in comparison with the Sienna, I do like these seats a lot more. Although this seat does not come with any height adjustments, so this is staying at a fixed height. But the thing about it is that I don't feel like I'm sitting up so high that it's kind of ridiculous. I got in this seat, it's very plush and comfortable, and I feel like I'm sitting at a normal seat height and I'm not sitting jacked up or anything. So I really actually like these seats way more in here than I did in the Sienna. Yeah,
the Sienna didn't have any height adjustment either, so that was one thing. If you watched that video, we went on and on for several minutes about how the height adjustment is not good, that doesn't have that. And this, at least, yeah, you don't have that either, but you have a normal seat, so that's nice.
Yeah, it doesn't have that, but it's just, yeah, it definitely feels way nicer in here. I like it better.
The driver's seat does have height adjustment though, and as it does in the Sienna as well. So it's just one weird thing that all these car companies have agreed, hey, let's just give less adjustments to the passenger seat. Even in the fully loaded, top of the line, everything included trim, they still cheapen out on those seats. And so it's not just Toyota, Honda does it as well, and many other companies too. It's just something I wish the entire industry would change. These seats are also ventilated seats here, but only in the Elite trim. And that is pretty unfortunate because when you look at the Pacifica, for example, that does have cooled seats in some of the lower trims that are several $1,000s cheaper than this Elite trim Honda. And Honda and Toyota both like reserving features that I don't think should be only in the top trim in only the top trim. Toyota's even worse, where you have to actually spend $3,000 more than this price, which is, by the way, this is just under $49,000. You have to spend $3,000 beyond that in the Sienna to even get a heated steering wheel. Thankfully, you can get a heated steering wheel here in the Elite trim, but again, that is another feature that is only reserved for this top trim. So if you're not buying the absolute loaded to the max Odyssey, you get no heated steering wheel, you have no cooled seats, which is a little bit unfortunate. But anyway, moving on to that steering wheel, aside from the fact that they make you pay almost $50,000 to get a heated steering wheel, it's a really nice wheel. It has a great 9-3 grip, no 10-2 notches or anything, but nicely leather wrapped here. In the higher trims, you have to go up to, I think, the EXL to even get a leather wrapped wheel, which is kind of crazy, but nice that you have that here in the Elite. And just a few buttons here on the wheel. It's a little more scattered than some of the others, which have a symmetrical kind of steering wheel to them. This has buttons kind of all over the place, but it makes sense once you start using it, and I don't have any complaints with that. You even get paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel, which is something you do not get in any of the minivan competitors. So not like most minivan buyers probably care, but if you are on the enthusiast side, it's just kind of cool to have the paddle shifters here. The gauges here in the Odyssey are also, I think, a little bit cooler than the competition. So while they're not as pretty as the Pacifica's gauges, they are much nicer looking than the Sienna's very basic gauges and the tiny little screen that it has, unless you go up to, again, those top trims. But I mean, this is a mostly digital display here. Of course, you have your engine temperature and your fuel that are analog gauges, but otherwise nice large digital. It looks pretty futuristic, and I think it's kind of cool. And you even have a little tack there at the top, but it's very minor and not the focal point there, because again, you're in a family vehicle and most buyers don't care about that. But a nice large speedometer, which is really great to have. It's just massive, and so is whatever information you want displayed there in that lower part. So you can have your trip information, but you can go through and it'll show you phone stuff, navigation, whatever music you're listening to, and you can even customize it so you can do different functions within it. So you can turn on the Blu-ray player in the back with just doing it right here on the dash and stuff. And so there's a lot of customization in there, even though it's not super fancy looking or anything. It gets the job done, and it's really nice to have. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, though, you have right up top, this is the display audio 8-inch touchscreen that Honda has, and thankfully this is running the newest version of Honda's infotainment technology, which is great, because in other stuff like the Civic and a few other models, it's not quite as nice. It's not the biggest screen, especially these days. All the 2021 model competitors in the minivan segment have bigger screens. The Sienna has a really nice large widescreen display, and in the Pacifica it's a 10.3-inch screen or something that's just massive, and actually makes this look a little old-fashioned in comparison. But this screen still works really well. I love how you can customize these tiles so that you can have all the things you use on a regular basis right there within one touch. And it has a volume knob. It does not have a tune knob, though. That's another thing that you do get in both of the competitors that this does not have. And so scrolling through radio stations is going to be a little bit more work, but once you have all your stations saved, it's not really going to be a big deal. So, and you do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it is still wired in. There's no wireless CarPlay integration. That is one thing that you do get in the Pacifica. You do not get that in the Sienna. And it also does have a couple of cool little touches. So you have the cabin watch feature here, which is something that Honda's had for a couple of years now, actually, and some of the other competitors are now following along. But that'll show you a good view of the second and third row, although it's mounted a little further forward than the brand new Fam Cam the Pacifica has. That's mounted a little further back, so if you have rear-facing car seats in the second row, you'll be able to see them better in the Pacifica than you will in this. But really great that it has that, and that is also combined with the rear seat reminder, which is now standard on all Odysseys. And so if you do have this camera feature in the trim of the Odyssey you buy, then every time you get out of the vehicle, it will also turn that on if it thinks that there's something in the back seat there. So that's cool. And it's also integrated with the cabin talk system that Honda also has. So you can turn this on, and then you can either talk through the speakers in the back if it's really noisy back there, or you can cut into their headphones of whatever they're watching and talk to them with the Bluetooth speaker, which is a very cool touch that has that. And so those are also features reserved here for these higher trims, but nice they give you the option to have all those.
But I just wish that with the highest trim you got a little bit bigger of a screen, because I just feel like, once again, this is really nice, but you have a whole inch and a half of space around the entire screen. So I don't know why that couldn't be a little bit bigger. Hopefully something in the next generation of Hondas, they'll all have bigger screens. Yeah, I just think it could use some improvements. Definitely. But it's still a really nice system for sure. And then coming down beneath that, you have your climate controls here, which is just a nice, simple, kind of old-fashioned setup, but works totally fine. You'll also notice this little bit of ambient lighting you have right beneath that little area, and it's subtle, but it's a nice little touch. Yeah, it definitely looks really cool in the dark. Yeah, and so that's something nice to have. That is also something you only get on the higher trims. It's not standard or anything, but it is nice to have. And there's a few buttons here for your gear shifter. You don't have any kind of knob or anything like that. And so, yeah, that is one distinction. Like the Toyota Sienna, they chose to continue to still have a normal shifter. This has just the buttons. Some people prefer one over the other. I personally think the buttons are totally fine, and, saves you a lot of extra clutter. But then moving on to the storage spaces here in the Odyssey, it is really good, but the Odyssey is now really the only minivan with a traditional minivan style dashboard here, because both the new Sienna and the new Pacifica have kind of
try to become more like an SUV with having a whole center console and like everything is bridged, whereas this, you can see it just kind of drops off and you have this, you know, wide open space here between the cup holders and, you know, the whole console. And so it gives you a really nice and open space. You'll see your Blu-ray player, also a USB jack, a normal house current plug, and then a normal power outlet down there. So good to have all those. Would be nice to have an extra USB jack in there, but you do also have another one in the bin back here. But anyway, so you have this very large space. I would say it's a little bit smaller than maybe the Sienna's massive cubby that they have here, but that is also blocked off with that bridge thing, so it's not quite as accessible as this is still. And then also another little bonus is you have, this whole area has been restyled, by the way, for 2021, and so you can slide this open and you have this nice large extra drawer here, which is great. And then you have your 2 cup holders, which are a good size, and a wireless charging pad, which is again only on the Elite trim here, but you have that. Otherwise, I think that would just be an extra little bin. And then you have this other huge deep bin behind that, and you'll also see an auxiliary jack and that other USB jack in there, and another very deep space. Is also illuminated, and it has even a little pocket in the back of it here, and you can slide this closed if you don't want that, and you can, you know, rest stuff on top of here. But tons of storage in there, which is really nice. And the doors, there's tons of storage as well. You have 2 pockets here in this upper tier, and then you have a lower area here which does have a bottle holder and another little cutout there, and so good amount of space there too.
And also in the passenger side, at the handle, you do have these 2 little cubbies here. You can put, you know, change in here or your phone or whatever, and that's really nice to be able to set something in there.
Yeah, it's, I mean, just lots of space. I think that is more door space than you get in the competition.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
A little bit of extra, you know, cubbies there if you're into that. And then moving on to the back seat here in the Odyssey. So of course, this being a minivan, tons of space, and it's very easy to access both the second and the third rows. So first off, we'll start in the second row there. So it's a really nice seat. It's pretty soft and comfortable, although it's notable that in the Elite, this fully loaded trim, there is still no heated second row seats. And that is one omission, that you do get heated second row seats in the Pacifica, and that's something you don't get here. Also, you don't get any kind of panoramic roof like you can get in the Pacifica, since it has seat mounted entertainment systems, whereas with this you have the roof mounted thing. Also, the Sienna has the roof mounted thing, so that also is stuck with the normal little small moonroof. But anyway, so I mean, good seats there. But the real cool party trick here with the Odyssey's second row seats is that it has this magic slide function, and so you can grab the handle there and slide it towards the middle here whenever you have the captain's chair. You can't get a normal bench here for the second row, but anyway, with the magic slide you can slide it to the middle there, and then it makes it much easier to get into the third row from the doors there if you don't want someone to have to crawl through the middle, even though the middle is very wide and I can walk through it very easily with tons of room to spare. That's the cool little touch. Now, if you do want to leave the seat in its normal position, you can also sling it forward with a lever, and so that's you know, totally fine too. And you also can remove the second row seats completely here in the Odyssey, which is something you can no longer do in the Sienna, and in the Pacifica it's a stow and go thing, or you can remove them in those as well. But you know, so that is nice that you have that feature. And also, this seats do slide forwards and backwards, and so I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself with the second row slid all the way back. I have easily, I'd say, about 5 to 6 inches of legroom to spare, and even with that seat slid all the way up as far as it'll go, I still actually do have a little bit of legroom there. So you know, it's a flexible space, but it does not recline back as far as the Toyota Sienna. That still takes the cake. That seat will slide so far backwards that I can fully extend my legs in that second row. It's not as spacious here, but unless you're you know, using your minivan as a VIP thing, that's the only thing where I think the Sienna is going to have that advantage, because that does make that third row useless in the Sienna when you have the seats back that far. But you know, with these second row seats, the nice thing is when you are in that third row, again, me being 5'9", even with the seat slid all the way back, I still have about an inch or two of legroom to spare. And with those seats slid forward, then I mean, I have, you know, 4 or 5 inches, so it makes for a very roomy third row no matter how you configure the second row here. But other things in the second row, you will see that there's a pocket in the door there as well, and also a little air vent there on the B pillar. And then when you look forward here, you'll see 2 cup holders, as well as 2 more USB jacks and an HDMI port, which is of course for the screen here. If you don't want to run Blu-rays, you can plug in your own HDMI source there and have movies playing, and so that's nice. It also does have a couple built-in streaming apps and stuff, so you can actually run Spotify through there, and you can also run iHeartRadio. And then it also does have an Are We There Yet function, where it has a cool little animation of, you know, your Odyssey traveling to your destination. That, of course, I believe only works with the factory nav, though. If you're using, you know, your map application on your phone through CarPlay or Android Auto, I don't think it reflects it on there. But, you know, it's a nice, you know, full HD screen, and so nice large widescreen display there. But then moving on to that third row, in addition to it being pretty spacious, it's, you know, pretty soft, comfortable seats back there. You will see that both sides do have 2 cup holders, which is great. And then on the passenger side, you'll see that you have a normal power outlet, as well as having an headphone jack, so you can also have them join in with the you know, audio that's playing or the movie that's playing, and so that's nice. They also have their own air vents there and speakers right by their heads there. On the driver's side, though, one of the new things for 2021 is that instead of having a power outlet there, you have a USB jack there in that third row, as well as having that headphone jack and the 2 cup holders. I'm not sure why they didn't do USB jacks on both sides, because I don't know who needs a cigarette outlet in the third row. Just seems kind of strange, but you can also just, you know, turn that into a USB jack by getting a little $5 plug-in thing for a, you know, power outlet and doing it that way. But kind of strange. If they're updating one, why not update the other side? Because I think everyone would prefer USB over a normal, you know, plug thing. But if you don't need that third row, you can fold it flat, and actually both the second row and the third row, they fold flat, and the second row actually folds flatter than it has in the past. And then moving on to the trunk area, you'll see that with that, you know, row folded down, you have lots of space, and of course that third row does completely fold into the floor if you'd like, and then that gives you a, you know, pretty flat load floor there if you you know, do fold it into the floor. But anyway, as far as it being a normal trunk with that third row actually up, I mean, you have a ton of space. You know, minivans are so good because they have such a deep well there. Instead of having a flat load floor like you have to have with SUVs all the time, this, I mean, it's just this massively deep thing, and so much space there. You also have little hooks there on the back of the third row seats for your grocery bags, which is a nice little touch. You also have a pocket there on the passenger side with another power outlet there. And then on the driver's side, you'll see instead of having a pocket, you have the Honda vac feature, which is something that you also only get here on the Elite, unfortunately, but it's a built-in vacuum cleaner. Also in the Elite, that's the only way you can get the touchless rear hatch, so you can, you know, do the kick to open thing, and also does kick to close, which is great that it has that. And then of course it's a power close tailgate as well if you want to just hit the button, which I prefer, because the kick thing still is kind of hit or miss. And there's actually one time whenever I was filming that trunk area where I was fumbling around trying to get that third row to drop down into the floor, and I happened to accidentally sweep my foot under the bumper, and it started closing the trunk on me when I'm still like fidgeting with the third row, and so I had to, like, you know, move out of the way before the thing closed. It would have stopped if it would have bumped into me, but it just I'm still not in love with these.
Yeah, I can never make them work either, so
yeah, it seems like they're always inconsistent. But yes, that's all our thoughts here on the interior of the Odyssey. Overall, it's a pretty nice interior. You know, it just depends on what you want. I think that's really the theme with all these minivan reviews, is they all offer different things, whether it's the Sienna having a hybrid or having its like shelves in the dashboard, whereas this has totally wide open, no bridge like the others have. There's different, you know, pros and cons to all of them. You can't go wrong with any of them, honestly. They're all really cool and really nice for 2021. Just depends on what you like.
Yeah, and I definitely really like this one. I don't know, I just have been really enjoying all of these Hondas recently, and I just think that this one's really great.
Yeah, and you kind of preferred this more than the Sienna, right?
Yeah, I did. I did like it more than the Sienna, to be completely honest. I just think that this is more of a traditional interior than the Sienna was. The Sienna was a little bit more exciting, but like a little too exciting for my taste, but you might love it, so it just depends.
Yeah, it all comes down to personal preference. But yeah, so anyway, please let us know your personal preferences in the comments below, and all your thoughts in the comments there. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.